All right, let's get into a couple winners and losers from the trade of Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors. We start with my first winner, the Spurs. Oh, absolutely, the Spurs. The saga is over. He is gone. They no longer have to deal with his crap. Kawhi Leonard is out the door, into Canada, and the Spurs are absolutely 100% a winner in this trade. They get DeMar DeRozan back. They get Jakob Poeltl back. They get a first-round pick, a fantastic package for Kawhi Leonard. The Spurs should be over the moon that they were able to get a guy like DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. I can't believe it. And I'll get to the Raptors a little bit later. I cannot believe that the Spurs, for Kawhi Leonard, a guy who, mind you, played 9 games last year. 9 games last year, right? They were able to pull DeMar DeRozan out of a 9-game season from Kawhi Leonard. That is incredible to me. Good for the Spurs, good for R.C. Buford, and good for Gregg Popovich. They are absolutely one of my winners from this trade. All right, let's go to my next winner. The Los Angeles Lakers, baby, absolutely a winner. They are still the favorite to land Kawhi long-term. No trade also means that all the kids get to stay. Brandon Ingram gets a year with LeBron, Lonzo, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, like we mentioned before. Now they all get a year with Daddy LeBron James as they get to start maneuvering this roster towards the future. LeBron made it clear to the Lakers that he doesn't think that they are going to win the NBA Finals. He understands that. He understands that this team right now is not good enough to beat the Warriors. And I think by not getting Kawhi, it lowers the expectation for the Lakers this year. And I think that's very, very important. They got to find a way to keep everyone's expectations low for a finals while also maintaining the expectation that this team is going to be very watchable. And I think that they were able to do that this offseason. Good for the Lakers. They didn't give up, a crazy trade to get Kawhi Leonard, and they still have one of the better rosters in the NBA. Obviously, LeBron James certainly helps. Let's get to my last winner. There's only one real winner, baby. It is Gregg Popovich, 100% winner. Look, people, I understand that maybe, he made a couple comments at a press conference that might have rubbed you the wrong way. Gregg Popovich showed how you handle a situation like this with pure and utter class. The man never outwardly said a bad word about Kawhi Leonard. If anything, he constantly defended Kawhi Leonard at every single turn. He respected Kawhi's want for a trade and ended up trading him. Obviously, it wasn't the team that he wanted, but he respected Kawhi's trade request and ended up getting him out of town. He never made a fuss. He met with Kawhi, and now he has an elite team to coach with little distractions. This was so well handled by Gregg Popovich. Maybe the medical staff was a little iffy. Maybe the inside sources of the Spurs, when it comes to how they handled the injury, might have been a little iffy. But that should not shine poorly on Gregg Popovich. He handled this situation like an absolute consummate professional, and he needs to be pointed out for doing so. Good job, Gregg Popovich. That is how you handle a star who wants out of town. You handle it exactly the way that Gregg Popovich did. All right, those were my winners. Not a ton of them. Let's get into my losers. Now, I'm kind of cheating here, people. I'm sorry. I'm cheating a little bit. The Raptors are sort of losers, like a little bit losers. They're like 60% losers and 40% winners. Because at the end of the day, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't back this up. Any trade that you end up with the best player, you win. You win any trade where you end up with the better player. And Kawhi Leonard is a better player than DeMar DeRozan. Regardless of how good or bad I think DeMar DeRozan is, Kawhi Leonard is a better player than DeMar DeRozan. And again, I don't really blame Kawhi. I do blame Kawhi for not talking and bringing this up, but the Raptors are just doing what they think is best. And by getting a guy in Kawhi Leonard, it makes him a legitimate title contender, or it gives him at least a legitimate shot at a title. As mentioned before, I don't think they're an actual contender, and I'll stand by that, but it gives them a shot for sure. I mean, what happens if Kawhi Leonard comes back at 100%? If Kawhi Leonard comes back at 100% of what he does and plays 100 and gives 100% of effort, who's to say that the Raptors aren't the second best team in the East and one of the 6 or 7 best teams in all of basketball? This is still Kawhi Leonard we're talking about here. This is no scrub. This is no Jay Crowder. This is no Randall Ford on the outside. This is Kawhi Leonard that we're talking about here, going on to a team that almost won 60 games last year. This is a good Raptors team comboing now with Kawhi Leonard. There's a lot of potential here. Now, credit, he could either not play, be bad, or leave next offseason, and it still kind of blows up in their faces, so that's why they're sort of losers. But look, if you're the Raptors, you got to make a run. You got to make a run at a title this year with no LeBron in the East. And if your calling card is Kawhi Leonard, who knows? Maybe you do actually make it to the finals, though I still don't think a Kawhi Leonard-led Raptors team beats the Warriors. We did have a lot of responses from around the NBA. This one really stuck out to me from Damian Lillard saying, SMH, cold game. Look, I want to make a small announcement to NBA teams and NBA fans out there. All of us get very angry when players do not remain loyal to their teams. Why should they? When players like DeMar DeRozan, who go out of their way to commit to a team like the Toronto Raptors, he went so far out of his way. He turned down contracts from both the Lakers and the Clippers in free agency, took a little less money with the Toronto Raptors to stay with the franchise, and they end up trading him anyway. That is why there's no loyalty in this sport. That is why players keep leaving their teams. Because guess what, guys? If the teams aren't going to show any loyalty to the players, then the players aren't going to show any loyalty to these teams. All right, let's get to my next loser here. Probably one of my more fun losers, and I'm just going to call him a loser. It's the Los Angeles Clippers, who remain one of my biggest losers of this entire offseason. They were attempting to move mountains to get Kawhi Leonard this offseason. And honestly, a trade was their only possible shot of getting Kawhi Leonard. There was no other way that they were going to end up with Kawhi. No way possible. They're not going to get him. They're not going to sign him away from the Lakers. They're not going to trade for him at the deadline from the Raptors. This was their only chance of getting a Los Angeles born and raised superstar onto the Clippers. That's now gone. And it also, mind you, showing that they weren't able to get Kawhi Leonard. Look, people, players talk. And I think when the Clippers traded away Blake Griffin, they did not expect NBA players to not want to play for them. But when you trade away a guy who just signed a Supermax contract with you, players aren't going to want to play for you. And I think we see this with Kawhi Leonard too. He's never been legitimately interested in the Clippers. He's always wanted the Lakers. And I think it has just been such an indictment on their franchise. I know they had to trade Blake Griffin, but the way that they handled it was so poor, and it shined very poorly on them, and I think players are taking notice. Another loser, and maybe the team that has had the most disappointing offseason of any team. Not the worst, because they still picked up some pretty nice players, but definitely the most disappointing has been the Philadelphia 76ers. Look, they've now struck out on 3 all-world NBA players. They struck out on LeBron, they struck out on Paul George, and they struck out on Kawhi Leonard. The only players that they picked up this year were J.J. Redick, who's already on their team last year, and they traded for Wilson Chandler. That's it. They got a couple nice players in the draft. Bielitsa didn't even come play for their team. He's now signing a 2-year deal with the Kings, most likely. So the 76ers had high aspirations and ended up failing, which I predicted at the start of the offseason if you go back and watch the show. You want to know why? I love Brett Brown. I think Brett Brown is a great coach. You know what Brett Brown isn't? He's not a GM, people. And I think this Brian Colangelo situation took a huge, huge chunk out of the Philadelphia 76ers and what they were trying to get out of this situation. It really did take a big chunk out of what they were able to do this offseason. Not having a GM ended up losing them probably Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, or at least obviously one of the two. They would have gotten one of the two if they had a GM. And I don't 100% blame Brett Brown. I blame the Sixers front office. This never, ever should have happened. And I can't believe that this whole burner Twitter account was even on the books, let alone something that someone got fired for. Let's go to my next loser here. It's Kawhi Leonard. He wanted to go to Los Angeles, and he ended up going to Toronto. That's not exactly a similar place at all. It's actually quite the opposite of what you're looking for from a trade. He wanted the Lakers, he got the Raptors, and now it's going to be interesting to see how hard he tries next year. Is Kawhi Leonard going to give 100% for a team that he does not want to play for? He's made it clear. The first report that we got after he got traded was, and I quote, Kawhi Leonard has no interest in playing for the Toronto Raptors. Now, I think that was coming from his uncle, because Uncle Dennis has completely messed up Kawhi Leonard's entire career up to this point. Kawhi, I know he's your family, and I know he's only looking out for your best. You guys stop listening to this dude. This dude is completely ruining your entire reputation and your entire just thesis. It's bad. Like, it's just bad what Uncle Dennis has been doing to Kawhi's career. I know this also has a very, interesting angle to it with, Kawhi's shoe deal with Jordan and getting him to a bigger market. But I don't know, man. The way this has been handled, I don't even think Kawhi Leonard is a marketable star at this point. He is such a tarnish on his name right now. But it will be interesting to see how well Kawhi Leonard plays this year. He needs to play some games so he can actually get a contract next year. He's got to play some basketball, people. He can't just sit on a bench again and see where it goes. So it'll be interesting to see how Kawhi Leonard ends up handling this situation. We got a super chat coming in from Brett Robbins. Brett Robbins, you and me, man. It's you, me, and the Utah Jazz versus the world, saying all these losers, good thing Joe Ingles is a winner. Absolutely. Joe Ingles is 100% a winner. Totally a winner. Absolutely the winner of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Use that super chat, people. Get those comments in, and we will bring them up here live on air. It's that little money button under the comment section on mobile and on desktop. So thank you guys for watching today. Thank you to Brett Robbins for that super chat. Let's go to my next loser here. It's DeMar DeRozan. Poor DeMar DeRozan, man. Think of this. We have talked so much this summer about loyalty with, Paul George remaining loyal to the Thunder instead of going to the Lakers, DeMarcus Cousins not staying with the Pelicans and going to the Warriors. And we wonder why players remain so unloyal to these teams. This is why, guys. This is why players are not loyal to their teams. This is why Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. This is why we've seen such a jumbling of stars. Here, I had a big tweet yesterday that kind of blew up, and I want to go through the players, okay? In 2000, at the end of the 2015-2016 season, listen to this, ready? Kevin Durant was on the Thunder. Cousins was on the Kings. LeBron was a Cavs, so was Kyrie. Kawhi was a Spur. DeRozan was a Raptor. CP3 was a Clipper, as was Blake Griffin. Paul George was on the Pacers. Jimmy Butler was a Bull. Isaiah Thomas was on the Celtics. Carmelo Anthony was still in the Knicks. And Gordon Hayward was on the Jazz. All of those players, all of them, certifiable NBA stars, have now switched teams. This is why. Because when you have a guy like DeMar DeRozan who signs a massive deal with a team like Toronto, who is not one of the biggest markets in the NBA, when he signs a contract like that and you trade him away for a guy who does not want to play for your team, there are going to be consequences. What NBA team or what NBA player right now would ever sign a long-term deal with the Raptors? Why? Why would I sign a deal with you when the guy who is committed to your team and to the city, one of the best players in the history of the franchise, maybe the best player in the Raptors franchise history, someone who's also done so much for the city of Toronto as a whole, you trade that guy away for Kawhi Leonard? Who's going to want to play for your team? I wouldn't want to play for the Raptors right now. Screw them. They just trade away DeMar DeRozan. It's ridiculous. I think the Spurs absolutely won this trade, and I still think it's ridiculous that the Raptors even attempted to trade away DeMar DeRozan. Terrible idea. Can't believe it actually happened. We got another super chat up here from Uncle Phil. Cam for president and Harris for VP. That is totally fine. Cam can absolutely be the president. I would be a great Joe Biden. Joe Biden is my idol. I love that man. Regardless of Democrat or Republican, wherever you stand on the aisle, I love Joe Biden. He's a Delaware guy just like me. He's the coolest cat you'll ever meet, and he's the nicest person that I've ever met in my entire life. I love Joe Biden. I'll absolutely be vice president. Cam Rogers and Harris Rubenstein on the ticket for 20, I guess, wait, don't you have to be like 45 or something to run for president? I don't know. 30, you have to be 32 to run for president. Well, you got about a little more of a decade, so I guess 2030 is when I can run for president, I think. I don't know. I'm bad at math.